Hey there, Goa fans. This is Mark, DJ Solitaire, here with episode 124 of Retro Goa Explorations, my weekly series in which I present in every episode one of my favorite tracks from the 1990s Goa Trance psychedelic dance movement. And we are still in the 97 to 98 season. So from the autumn of 97 through to the end of the summer of 98. So I am currently featuring tracks that that were either produced during that period or that I came across during that period. And there's so much. I mean, I'm looking at the list still thinking, can easily do 50 episodes on tracks from the season, and I might. But the one that I'm going to feature today, I've already featured this project in this season because it's a doozy, and I featured one of their tracks last season, and have to do this one because it is a really groundbreaking one, as were the other two, but in a very different way. And I also remember very clearly how I got my grubby little mitts on this absolute beauty. So I've named before that, I was in London through to about February, at some point February 1998, went to Vancouver for a few weeks and then moved to Tokyo on the spring equinox. Is it equinox or solstice? Spring solstice? Spring equinox. I always get them confused. So I moved the same weekend as Steph from Total Eclipse, Tsuyoshi, and the Solstice guys. The guys who were doing small parties in Vancouver while they were ostensibly studying English. Akira, Chika, and a group of other Japanese fellas who were there. And Akira and Chika and Masa, who's not the same Masa who's famous from Tokyo Techno Tribe and other projects, but another one. And so we all descended on Tokyo at the same time. And I've also named before that Akira, who would go on to run, Solstice would become a massive organization that would take over from Equinox. So, I wonder Equinox Solstice, right? I mean, kind of a good common theme there. So he lived a few stations away from where I did in Tokyo. And quite often, as an English teacher there, I would teach. There was always a morning class and an evening class for company employees before work and after work. And so I would come back at 8, 9 o'clock or so. And quite often I take a little train. There's a little very cool retro style train, quite appropriate, that would go sort of above ground, just a few stations away. And he lived like a minute or two from the station. And so we'd often go over there, have a drink and so on, and listen to tunes. And one day, one evening, I should say, we're all sitting around, and it's one of those times that reminds me of the story that I told when Hector Toast, the DJ for Twisted, was over at Richard Purple's with me, and he just very sneakily puts on this track that starts really softly, just with noise. And Richard and I are, what's going on here? And then, this incredible track comes out. And it was very similar in this case, because this track starts off very softly and just comes in, and then you're kind of like, what's going on? And it's more techno in many ways than trance, but oh boy, does it fit in beautifully. And it's an absolute masterpiece. And so I am talking about Delta Skelter by the Delta. Now, in the previous season, I talked about how, again, it was at Richard Purple's place. I first heard as a child I could walk on the ceiling, initially hated it, and of course, then grew to love it. And then how for months I was trying to get my hands on traveling at the speed of thought, not knowing even the name of the track, just knowing there's a Delta track and that it's not the remix of Johann Stranded, it's another one, and I finally got it. Well, eventually, when that came out, the published version, it was on the other side of Delta Skelter. The original test pressing of Traveling at the Speed of Thought had a Montauk P remix of the same track. I've got a copy of one of those test pressings. But Delta Skelter was not yet released at the time that Akira played this for me. And it was sometime in the summer of 98. I know that I played it at a party in August 98. And so I closed the party with this track. I mean, it was just, oh my gosh, it was so great. And it's just an incredible track. And so there's lots to share about it. Even though, relative to some of what we're used to listening to in the psychedelic trance, Goa trance realm, it seems fairly minimal. Now, I've been talking for quite a while about the fact that we need a variety of styles and sounds to mix in. And what I really prefer is not having just one sound during a set, and when things can really flow, and different styles can be harmoniously mixed together, it becomes analogous to all these people of different backgrounds dancing together in harmony on the dance floor. And that is really what the parties used to be like. That's what the atmosphere on the dance floor was like. And that is also musically what the set construction and the overall, party flow was like. And this is a perfect example. And so there's a couple of things that hopefully I'll remember to say both during and after we listen to this. So let's get started with this unbelievable track by the Delta. I should probably talk about the title first. So Helter Skelter was an expression that was used in a song by the Beatles. It was meant to communicate a kind of a downfall, like kind of a chaos, right? Like the fall of the Roman Empire. It's kind of appropriate for the times we're living in. So where things are collapsing and there's kind of this chaos that's coming. And the expression gained some notoriety when the psychopath Charles Manson and his followers, went on killing rampages, and they were talking about, there's going to be this destruction in the United States, this race wars and all of these things happening, and because they were writing, helter skelter, so they were wanting this destruction of the status quo. So that's kind of what the expression itself means. Now here we have Delta Skelter. So, just sort of a play on words. And of course, not talking about anything in the violent sense, but just, if you think about a kind of a decay and things breaking down, and we also have the sense that, our movement, this dance movement, was this peaceful but rebellious move against the status quo. That, civilization as we've known it is, not working. There's aspects that aren't working, and we need to have peace. We need to have some celebration. And, for me personally, I always sense that, when there's that connection to the beyond, that a lot of this music really seemed to communicate, and still does seem to, at least, the good ones, the good tunes, and the right events, then that really helps us realize, what it is that humans have created. Some of it is great and some of it not so much. And so where is that sort of appropriate level of decay and breaking down? So in terms of this track, there's definitely some very interesting, some decay, some sounds, the way you hear things sort of crystallizing and then, changing form. I think it's amazing. So that's just a little aside. I'm not sure exactly what their intention was with that, but I'm sure there's something along those lines. And of course, just to play on words on the famous expression, helter skelter. So without further ado, here we go. The Delta and their incredible, for me, groundbreaking and certainly very memorable and effective and powerful track, Delta Skelter. So just this oscillating back and forth, very quiet, and it starts building up. And left and right channels, the sounds are different. Very hypnotic. It's just climbing in terms of the quality of the sound. after all of the busyness that we get in a lot of Goa and psychedelic trance tracks, this is fascinating. Really sort of, here we have that minimalist, really ideal focus on just a few sounds and the patterns. Listen to the interplay. This is so intelligently put together. So incredible, all the different kinds of sounds that are happening at different frequency levels and the way they work together. Super hypnotic. Then this is so soft. So we have this sound and you're like, is it a voice? Right? Is this a chorus like those Delta choruses that we have in their other tracks we've heard so far? It's just like the sound, and so you can't quite identify it yet. What's that drone-like note? There we have that. I was like, oh, it is a chorus, and the notes are changing now. And then changes in a different pattern. Then I don't know of any other track where things have just come down to absolutely nothing and then introduce something new, brand new like that, and not with a kick. Absolutely unbelievable way to just bring everyone together, bring your consciousness together. So again, with that kind of mantra-like, that repetition, again, it's just really sounding like a voice from the beyond, this message that higher intelligence is trying to get that vibration through. It's like kind of like that question answer back and forth. And that chorus comes in again. I mean, really, this just kind of sounds like you're in space, or you're hearing, this like Greek chorus or council of beings communicating with you. Hypnotic. many times have these riffs been going on and just sort of really get lost in this drone-like, mantra-like repetition. And then that happens. Again, just completely lost in the cycle of repetitions. Just some of those fantastic upper frequency sounds that are going on there just add so much texture and really open up the space. Going to start unwinding now if I'm not completely lost. I mean, really. Um, no, it's not like there haven't been great techno tunes that were played as part of Goa. I mean, a lot of artists, a lot of early stuff was, a lot of it came from techno. And before Goa got named and articulated and started getting defined as a style, people were blending all kinds of stuff in their sets. If you could make a story and you could make sense and there was a flow, you could very easily have something like this in a set. And sure enough, this was just a brilliant way to start bringing in some more of that flavor that was, really part of the early days in the Proto-Goa times. And it's just fantastic. Now, personally, I don't want to hear an entire set. I mean, I wouldn't want to hear 2 or 3 hours. I mean, nowadays a set is an hour. So, something like that placed well in a flow is great. But what I think is really important still is having a flow of styles within a set and being able to incorporate something like this that really strips things down and brings things into a certain kind of focus. And what was so incredible was, as I named, how everything stops and then there's a silence and then that clarion call kind of voice comes in. um Considering how much people tend to talk about mixing being what makes a DJ, that is your mixing technique. Well, if you're playing all minimal music and you're doing things where, it's really involves, and there's geniuses with this, right? I mean, Carl Cox with multiple, turntables doing like, I mean, it's unbelievable. That's another kind of music making, another kind of set creation, right? So that's a different kind of DJing for sure. When you have tracks like in our scene, where each one is already complete, it's a complete mixed comprehensive story in and of itself. And then you start blending that with other stories. How it is you put those together, it's a different kind of skill. And it's not necessarily going to involve busy making and, having to just match the kick drum. When people talk about beat mixing, I like to clarify and say, I think we're talking about kick mixing, because you get the kick of the two tracks overlaid and then, you keep things going in and out. That's the kick. You can have no kick drum, but the beat is still flowing and, your body's counting the rhythm. And then the next thing comes in. If you're mixing outros and intros of different tracks together, the rhythm continues. That's actually still beat mixing. It's just not kick mixing. Now, this track has that full stop in the middle of the track. And that's complete. Now, why can't you do that at the end of a track also? If you can do it in the middle of the track, it all depends on how you hold it and what the logic of the flow is and how it is that you do that connection. And so, some people have pointed out when I do things like that, like I'll play, the Infernal Machines, the Loin King, and I'll let that full outro come out, and there's just that whoosh at the end, and then it goes into something else. Somebody's like, whoa, I wouldn't have the nerves, or whatever the words that they used was, to do that. It's kind of how things were done back then. It's not about just mixing the rhythm always either. It's about how does this all sound like one voice and one sound lead into another. So this one with that incredible kick, that sort of, that increase at the beginning, sorry, just, that patterning just before the kick comes in. I mean, that can be beautifully blended from something else. But that break in the middle reminds us that it's okay to stop and take a breather, and that we can actually also mix our sets that way, where there is a pause at the right time. You don't always want, I don't want entire sets this slow personally. But I think if you're doing a 3 hour set, you have 10, 20 minutes like this can actually work great, or just one track, again, depending on where you are in the party. I remember that when Ollie played his full moon party at Mount Fuji in October 95, he played, it was about 10 hours, and there was a 30-minute section where he played stuff that was much slower, that was in the 120 to 130 BPM range. And I remember telling him about that. He's like, I didn't do that, did I? I was like, he's like, oh, yeah, you did. No, you did. And I remember where the change took place and which track he brought in. It was a voodoo, through with voodoo people in doof, and it's a pretty slow one. So, I did that. And there's audio of that happening. So yeah. And it was perfect because it was just, after going for like 8 hours, you do this, little transition, and you catch your breath and you have a little floaty time, and then you go back into it. So this track is perfect for that. Now, again, if you're really into techno, of course you're going to love, entire sets of this kind of stuff. And there's no doubt you can go somewhere with that. I think we need to remember that, this stuff can still be incorporated with different kinds of content before and after. And you can do it, not necessarily immediately next to each other, but you can do these wonderful creative flows that let these different kinds of music interplay, and to then unlock different keys in our consciousness and our experience. And this one certainly did. Never forget sitting in that circle of friends at Akira's around the sound system, and this coming on, and I was just like, what the fork is this? And he very graciously let me copy that onto DAT, and boy did I play the heck out of this. So it was released at some point in 98. The Discogs, listing first says 97, then says 98. No clear time, but it was by the summer. As far as I know, it was still not on vinyl. And this was an incredible coup to have this beautiful track. And it's been a favorite since. And I think it was a landmark one, and justly so. So again, hats off to the Delta. And I think that's probably enough pontificating for me today. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm Mark DJ Solitaire, wrapping up episode 124 of Retro Goa Explorations. And I'll leave you now with the complete track without commentary by the Delta Skelter.